Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a few moments.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another webinar with Cornerstone Wealth Group. Today's webinar topic we're going to be talking about is insurance planning for individuals and business owners. Myself, along with the other advisors of Cornerstone Wealth and Lawson Condell of Safe Harbor Insurance Advisors who will be joining us today, want to spend some time talking about insurance really as a planning tool. Lawson has been an independent agent now with his own business and does a great job of advising clients, similar to the way Cornerstone does, on insurance needs and how they can help protect you. So insurance, in this case, we're going to be talking today from the protection side. We really want to focus on individuals and businesses as well as what they can do to protect themselves, their families, even their future income and assets. So, of course, that's what we want to talk about. So let me go ahead and introduce our information today. So let me get this next screen. So myself, I'm Alex Barnes, certified financial planner and wealth advisor at Cornerstone Wealth. And then Lawson Condell is the principal and owner of Safe Harbor Insurance Advisors in Lexington, South Carolina. As a lot of clients and those who may be on our phone call know today, we have an office in Lexington, South Carolina. And the good thing with Lawson, just like with Cornerstone, we're able to help our clients and anybody else throughout the Southeast for the most part. Lawson, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and give a little bit of a background about your business and what you want to talk about today.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I appreciate you allowing me to, or inviting me to be here today. So I own Safe Harbor Insurance Advisors. We are an independent agency. We are licensed throughout the Southeast. We have probably 60 different carriers to really tailor fit coverage for each client. So I grew up here in South Carolina, went to USC, spent a little time in the military, cut my teeth with insurance with a large corporation, ADP, on the commercial side with workers' comp. And that built into a number of different exposures with larger companies, dealing with a number of different verticals, right? So spent about 10 years on the commercial side working with different companies all throughout the Southeast, and decided to open up my own brokerage specializing in commercial insurance, and we do also personal lines. So thank you very much for inviting us to be here today.
Yeah, thank you. And this is the one thing today that we want to talk about, as Lawson kind of alluded to, is helping people understand the type of insurance and what it's used for, how to protect them. So we'll be talking about personal lines as well as for business owners. So today, these are the topics that we want to kind of go through. We do have a question and answer at the end as well as throughout this presentation. So please feel free to submit any questions you may have as we go through all these topics. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what insurance does for you. So I've talked at first about, as a protection, so we really do want to focus on that. A lot of times insurance can, be sold or viewed as potentially an asset, and there are ways and times to where you want to look at that. Today's focus really is going to be on protection, though. We want to make sure that, those of you who are on the call understand the type of insurance, why you would want to own it, what it would protect, and then really how you could go about maybe getting that type of insurance if it's applicable for you. So, of course, the first thing we're going to discuss after just insurance as a general topic, we'll go through individuals. We'll then follow up with business owners, and then I'm going to have Lawson tell us a little bit about the advantage of working with an independent agent. If you're a client of Cornerstone or you're a guest, if you do work with an independent agent, similar to working with Cornerstone, our advisors, myself included, we're doing things that are in the best interest of our clients, and that's what you get a lot of times with an independent agent or an independent firm such as Cornerstone. And so I want to have Lawson spend some time just talking about that, because knowing the difference between, the state farms, the prudentials, and then what Lawson can do and how he can assist. So again, initially, let's start off here in Lawson. So what insurance does for you, right? I mean, seems like this would be a pretty straightforward question, but why don't you run through this and give a rundown of how you would tell somebody or what you would tell somebody that insurance does for you?
Yeah, exactly. So as we bring on each one of our clients, depending if they're commercial or individual, and a lot of times we're looking at both, right? So it's identifying, what their assets are and how do we protect it, right? That's our first role, is just really doing the risk assessment and then understanding where the threats are. So insurance truly is a vehicle to help protect you, right? I mean, again, what I want to do and being with the independent is that we're able to have a number of different carriers to really tailor it for you, to do that risk assessment, to understand, where your assets are, and what different from the personal side of where you live and your business and how it ties to it, where the threats are. So we can really help protect that and protect you and really what you love.
Yeah. So Lawson, as it comes with insurance, and from my side or from the financial planning side, this list here. So we talk about protecting your life, protect your assets, protect your income. I think that is obviously a lot of people understand that, life insurance, for the loss of life, if somebody were to pass away prematurely, protect your assets, so if we're talking about your home, your vehicles, protecting your income, that's another one, disability income. To me, I think the peace of mind that insurance provides is really an important thing, because a lot of times I get questions from clients specifically related to paying a premium for a potential or for a possible insurance premium, in terms of things like that. Is that something that you would consider, or what's a common question if somebody comes in to see you, it talks to you over the phone with your firm? What are some of the primary concerns that somebody brings up with you?
Yeah, so it's, each one's a little different on looking at, what they're, are they coming at it from a personal lines? Are they coming at it a commercial, right? To really identify where their risk tolerance is, right? To really kind of outline what's at risk here, right? From if they're running a business. I had a client that was running, had a trucking company and was running different things to the nuclear plant down off the Georgia-South Carolina border. And they found with a lot of their trucks that weren't labeled, they had people down there running scams that were trying to purposely pull in front of them so they would wreck so they could sue, knowing that they did not have, a certain amount of coverage, right? So they came to me saying, hey, I need you to review our commercial policy. And I found like all kinds of different gaps, right? So identifying, where they are, where their risks are, as well as on the personal side of seeing, maybe a lot of people don't know about our umbrella insurance, right? And pointing out different things of until you realize that you can be sued, that somebody could come over and sue you, and the financial impact of that, it's eye-opening for a lot of clients.
Yeah, I'm glad you actually brought up the word risk tolerance. If there's any clients on this phone call, I'm sure they've heard that word before. We talk about risk, and a lot of times people associate that with investments, the amount of risk you want to take to grow your assets. But it's great that you brought that up, because risk tolerance as it applies to insurance is important, because you can always pay a cheaper premium for an insurance policy, but then on the back end, you take on more of that risk. And vice versa, you pay a higher premium, you now have more of your risk covered. And that really is a big thing, because that really is, from a protection standpoint, what we're going to focus on today. All right, so let's talk about individuals. So, Lawson, there's, 3 circles up here. They probably overlap in life more than they are on this picture, honestly. But go through us, or go through for us and those on the call. So personal lines, we see here homeowners insurance, auto, boat, umbrella insurance, which you and I have discussed before, and I'm sure almost every advisor that's part of this firm has talked with clients about. what that is, how it's important. And then I'll kind of finish up there with a little bit with your input as well on the life insurance and disability as well.
Right. Yeah. So all great items. So on the personal line side, so most people have a vehicle, right? So in the U.S., we have two different types of states. We have a tort state, which South Carolina is, and then we have a no-fault state. And these no-fault states, basically, Alex, if you and I if I run into you, the police basically, there's no fault is determined. Here in South Carolina, if I run into you and we have a wreck, the police are going to show up and determine fault. At that point in time, that's when we can file claims, or you could file claims against me. So this is one of the big reasons to have this coverage, right? You think about a truck, you go to buy any type of truck. I was looking at trucks about 6 months ago, and I couldn't really find anything under $30,000, right? They're expensive items, right? If you total one of those things, it's amazing how fast your insurance, you're going to get close to your limits, right? So making sure that people are properly covered, that they're not coming out of pocket. Again, insurance being here to cover you. Your home, right? So your dwelling replacement is calculated by the carrier, but it's really determined, those calculations are made off what the agent puts in. So we want to make sure, I feel like I am obligated, and I carry insurance myself for any errors and omissions of what I do, and all agents have to, making sure that I properly classify the home, making sure that I put down what the foundation is, and all those calculations are come out to make sure that the house, if homeowner's insurance, if there was a damage or complete destruction, that it would be rebuilt exactly how it is. So one thing, common misunderstanding is that it's not related to the selling value, right? So making sure that you're covered there. Also, personal liability. So somebody comes over to your house and gets injured. Personal liability on your homeowner's policy, which everybody, if you have a homeowner's policy, these are all standard lines on there. This will pay for any injury as well as your defense costs, which I think is one big item. So if somebody were to come over and get hurt, I don't have to shell out $10,000 for a retainer for an attorney just to defend me on those things. So making sure that my clients are well protected, right? So once these limits are reached, then the individual has to pay out of pocket. So this is all there to really, again, map it to where we're identifying the risk, but we're also matching it for each client's risk tolerance. Because I have clients that say, hey, I want more. My uncle was sued. Somebody came over, tripped, fell off the porch, sued them, and he's still paying for it. So they've seen the examples of what can happen. So these are different things that, to really help protect you. One of the things that I get, go ahead.
Yeah, and not to cut you off there, sorry, but one thing I think we talked about this as well, with homeowners specifically, obviously with auto insurance and maybe the boat insurance as well, I don't know as closely with that one. Of course, we think of depreciating assets like the autos. With the homeowners, though, we typically see where home values rise over time. And, of course, there's going to be, like you said, what it can be purchased for in a given market environment, but then what can it be rebuilt for? Only because I have this conversation with clients and friends and family at times. Can you talk about how carriers or how somebody should go about protecting themselves? Because let's talk about inflation just driving up the cost to rebuild that home, whether it be materials or labor. How does that affect the policy, and how can somebody find themselves in a bind if they're underinsured in that regard?
It's a great question. So again, you do want to, a lot of it comes down to the agent of what they're putting in, right? So making sure that they're putting in the correct square footage, the correct foundation, the correct, when the roof was replaced, all these different things. There's also an endorsement that provides 25 to up to 50%, and some carriers will allow more. So another reason of working with an independent agent, that they have more carriers that aren't limited. Some carriers only allow you to go up for 25%, but they have an endorsement that you can add 25% more coverage to dwelling replacement. So for your exact example, you buy a house, Alex, and then next week lumber prices spike, right? So until we have to rebuild your house, nobody really knows, right? So it's a calculated estimate on the carrier side, but these endorsements, and I make them standard with all of our clients on the personal line side, but having these endorsements will cover those spike in material costs to make sure that you're properly covered, and constantly throughout the year talking with my clients to see, hey, do you have plans for a bathroom remodel, an addition? Are you building a garage? Are you building a detached garage? I just want to make sure, because a lot of times the excitement of building and adding onto the home, I am one of the last people, or not even thought of to be called, but I want to make sure that your asset, that your home is properly protected. So it's one of the things that at least watching with them.
No, that's actually great because, myself and the other advisors, we tell our clients if a major life event happens, right, that's something you should be reaching out to us. Of course, myself, we try to reach out to our clients to check on them, whatever amount of time it may be between meetings or phone calls just to catch up. But we're not there every single day. And if something major happens, letting those around you, the professionals of your team around you to understand and to know and how that's going to impact you. I think that's great, great thing to say, because it's something that, if a client has a major change inside their home in a good way, now this, of course, being in a positive way, if they do a new addition to their home, they want to make sure that that home value, if that new addition is increasing it by a significant amount, is going to be covered. We don't want to find out that something happens and then that brand new sunroom that I just added on is no longer going to be part of my next home because it was not, included in terms of value. Yeah.
That's right.
So jumping into that next circle then, because I do think that, that again, like you said, you add certain lines, or certain options onto the policies for everybody. And this is one, umbrella insurance that I think is a really key piece of insurance that can sometimes, be misunderstood or maybe not known exactly what it covers, but I know it does play into the personal lines as well. Why don't you talk about that for us, for a little bit?
Yes. So, so similar in both commercial and umbrella, commercial and personal lines. But let's stay with the personal lines while we're here. So the personal lines, umbrella, the quickest thing, it is the most cost-effective way to extend your liability coverage. So if you think about an umbrella, right, and you have your home and your auto and your boat and your RV or anything else that you have under a personal lines policy, the umbrella extends that liability. So if you think, if your spouse or, if you have a teenage driver, if they're driving and they go through a red light, and they T-bone somebody, and these, accidents happen. None of these are ever planned, and the person is injured or paralyzed and has, will have lifetime cost. The medical bills alone, the damages to the vehicle, all of those can supersede $300,000, $500,000. Umbrellas usually start around $1 million, and they can go up to $5 million. They can go up really high. A lot of times you'll hear that. I capped out at $2 million with my umbrella. That's because of the carrier, right? And again, one of the reasons for working with an independent. But different carriers will offer a higher threshold to match your wealth. So I had a meeting. I was in a networking group, and there was a personal defense attorney, and he was telling me, and reach out if you know some of them, ask them. He was telling me to really watch out for my clients, that he was like, when one of my clients, the personal attorney says, when one of his clients gets hurt, he's going to go after everything they need. If they extend out all the insurance, and they're going to go after their home. They're going to go after anything else that they can to recover revenue or income for their clients. So an umbrella policy, $1 million policy can run anywhere from $200 to $400, but it would extend as your liability for your home is $500 and your liability for your car is $500 and maybe your RV is $300, it'll extend those liabilities up to $1 million or $2 million. So if you say, hey, I have a bunch of rental properties, these are wealth considerations that an attorney would go after. Should I go, extend without an umbrella policy and I have a $300,000 liability policy on my car and I T-bone somebody and their cost is $3 million, they're going to go after my assets, right? And these are a very low cost ways of protecting that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. That definitely, umbrella policies, again, I can speak for myself and probably for the rest of our team. From a personal lines standpoint, umbrella policies are almost a must-have, right? Especially if you want to protect yourself. And kind of jumping onto the flip side of that, I think that was a great example where you talk about it. Let's say a teenage driver that, we can all remember back to being teenage drivers thinking that we owned the world and could drive free as, we want, right? You have that one accident that, wrecks a brand new Mercedes, potentially hits a doctor, right? That now all of a sudden that doctor can't work. Mm-hmm. These are the types of things that, that they can happen. Unfortunately, I've seen those real life examples and, some of my clients and, that's one of those things. If you're prepared for it, hopefully you're protected enough. But then again, I do think that that's where we talk about the other side. We've kind of addressed it now from the point of view of you protecting yourself. Well, now what if you're on the other side of that accident? So, that kind of jumps in with the life insurance and disability insurance. And, Lawson, I'm sure you can, echo this and say the same thing that, protecting that life. So if you're the person in that accident that lost their life, you want to make sure that your ability to protect your family, if you have one, or protect anything outside of that, with life insurance, that's a key thing right there. And with professionals, a lot of times, unless you're a business owner and you're owning your own, most people think of their life insurance through their group with their company. So that's a key thing there to make sure that you understand if you own the insurance. So the products that Lawson can write, the personal lines, the homeowners, the umbrellas, you're going to own those policies. Most times being non-cancelable, I'm sure, unless, you start to put on too many claims and things like that. And then we talk about disability insurance where you're protecting your income. So let's say you don't die, right? And that's a good thing, but you're unable to work for some extended period of time. You want to make sure that you're covered from a disability standpoint. And I know I've told Lawson this, and I'm sure he's probably told other people this now. With disability through your work, you're limited typically on what you can get from a reimbursement standpoint. If you qualify for Social Security disability, you might be limited with the amount that you can get from a benefit standpoint. Excuse me. And then also with disability, potentially, if the riders or if you're excluded from your job, but you can go flip hamburgers for McDonald's, you might still be excluded. So having the right type of policies on both sides of whether you're the person that had the accident and caused the problem, or if you're on the receiving side and all of a sudden now you're the person who's having to figure out how to protect yourself because you were in the accident. Those are important things, and that's why these circles are all three combined because they really do all play in with each other here. Anything you want to add on this section, Lawson, before we kind of jump over to business owners?
No, it's great.
Great. Let's see here. So there we go. So talk through your commercial insurance or business. I think if I were to say, Lawson, if I were to introduce you to somebody, I would say I think commercial's a little bit more of your bread and butter. I think you seem to have a great grasp on commercial. Not that you don't know your stuff on the individual side, but I can tell that you really have a clear picture and clear passion on the commercial side as well. So walk through this. Educate myself and everybody else on this call. If you're not a business owner, you may work for a small business owner. And if you don't work for a small business owner, maybe you have a friend that's a small business owner. We all probably know somebody. So, tell us what's important here that we're looking at.
Yeah. So the quick overview is it's there to protect. It's there to protect you as a business owner. It's there to protect your business. right, and the assets of the business, and your employees, right? So workers' comp is there to protect your employees. So when we bring on a commercial client, we are reviewing, one, their vertical, what their industry is, and then how many employees, what their assets are, and really tailoring it there. If they're a new business, we want to make sure that they're operational and not overburdened with policies that they may not initially need to operate, but we also want, again, insurance is there to one claim, one lawsuit can destroy your dream of opening up your own company, right? And many years as you planned and saved, and then one thing, even just the defense of a claim against you, a lawsuit against you, can wreck it. So different things. Your first one here is a business owner's policy, which is a very common, what's known as a BOP. It's a very common bundle. So what it does, it pulls together property. So if you had a brick and mortar, it also pulls together business interruption. So, and that's traditionally tied to fire. So if you say, hey, if I have a pizza restaurant and it burns to the ground, this would cover your income while it's being rebuilt, so you don't go out of business because of a fire, as well as liability. So again, covering you on commercial liability, which is somebody slips and falls, or if you are a manufacturer, if you are making a product, if there's any injuries from that product, so it'll cover those three items right there. So property, liability, and then business interruption. So the next one is commercial umbrella. So this is another, we're going to tag again off the umbrella. Umbrella is going to be an extension of a standard policy. So if you have, your commercial general liability, if you have property, these are all going to extend the liability up. And it's, again, very similar to personal lines. It's a very cost-effective way to extend your liability up. And again, there's numerous stories of lawsuits that have fed into different things that you can easily outrun your limits, and then again be paying for years, if not default the company just by the lawsuit against you for damages. And then commercial professional liability versus general liability. General liability, again, is going to protect you from somebody coming into your business and slipping and falling and getting hurt. Professional liability, which is also known as errors and omissions, is more for service-related businesses. So this is going to be off the advice. I have to carry E&O or professional liability. Realtors have to carry it, attorneys, CPAs, and this is to protect me or any service business owner from an intended or an injury, a financial injury, or even an injury that is just interpreted by their client. So this will help pay for damages, as well as software is big on these as well, but also legal costs. So really, again, helping to protect your business from when you're just starting out to when you're big and growing and people see you as, you've got more that they can go after. So really helping protect you and the company.
Yeah. And actually, only because I know we talked about this, and it's something I learned a little bit as well. So we're going through this COVID-19 pandemic, which is really what drives almost all these webinar series that we're doing now, and I'm sure we'll continue as we can, even after we make it through COVID, because we've all gotten used to this way of life. But with the business owner policy, because I asked you this question, so that loss of revenue because somebody had to shut down, as you stated, that is not something that's typically covered. And I think this kind of plays in with from a planning perspective, my side, I can always say you want to make sure for an individual, have your 3 to 6 months of the emergency savings always built up in case something like this happens. Of course, a business owner, that's much harder. There's more expenses. It's a different scenario. but explain a little bit, there's always things that are excluded. And I think this is an interesting, highlight given the situation we went through right now. What are some common exclusions that business owners should be aware of here?
Yep, and that's again a great point. So commercial is different than personal lines, right? It's not. So personal lines, to keep it simple, is standardized. Commercial is not, and it differs by carrier. And exactly what Alex said. What's included is just as important as what's excluded. So there's so umbrella. Commercial umbrella will extend your liability up, but for a lot of policies, it won't extend liquor liability. So, you have a restaurant, somebody drinks and leaves and gets hurt. A lot of policies will not cover that, right? There are some ways to work around it, and that would be to work with your independent agent on that. Pollution. So, you've got a truck that's carrying hazardous materials. A lot of times the policy will not cover that. So it's just, there's a lot of different things you want to look at to see on the defense cost, right? So a lot of the carriers will have appointed where if you do have a lawsuit where you have to go with whoever the carrier appoints. I would not want that to happen. And for all my carriers, that's one of the all my clients, I want to make sure that we are with a carrier that has where my client can pick the attorney that would defend him or her, right? But there's a lot of different things, and again, that would tie in, and there's so many that, and it's different for each vertical or each industry, that I would definitely say, having a specialist, having somebody that knows your industry, that knows your risk, is key here, right? And having different options that they can tailor to make sure that you're protected and your business is protected and your employees have a business to come back to, and that they're protected. So.
Yeah. No, it's great. It really is, like you said, with the personal lines, the homeowners and the auto, there's a lot of things that are, as you said, standard, right? You go shop your policy around, you're going to get the same, you're most likely going to have a similar policy with a few things here and there that can be changed.
That's right.
And then with the business owners, as we kind of circle back to that first slide where we talked about, it's all about the amount of risk you want to take. You want to live on the coast and you don't want to buy a flood policy, or you live in a low-lying area and you don't want to buy a flood policy, that's fine. You're assuming that risk. Even if you live in the mountains and you want to buy a flood policy because you really don't want that risk, go ahead and do it. So it is important always to have somebody on your side, and I think talking about that really can so we kind of move over here now. So these are a lot of the reasons, the advantages of working with an independent agent, working with independent in almost any type of profession, right? So you've thrown in a few things here and there, Lawson, as we've gone through these slides, but if you want to add anything, please do go right ahead. This is the time to let us know, working with an independent agent, what are the biggest advantages? What do you do to take care of your clients and show them the value of being, with an independent?
Right. No, it's a great question. So, it's and one of the reasons that I designed it for independence is just the business model makes sense to me. It's how I'd want to be treated. And this is just from, how I feel about it. I feel like I represent the client and not a carrier, right? So I am going to each client to make sure that we're tailoring it, and it gives me the freedom to look at different carriers and to find different carriers that will match my client, right? And to make sure that we are and if things change. You're gonna grow. You're going to you may downsize. There's different things. You may acquire a new company that's a totally different industry. I want to be able to have a solution for as you grow that we can tailor to you. So, and that's really having that flexibility, having that solutions for each client, and then really just studying their risk. That's the big, right? The first part is studying their risk, understanding their risk, and then building the solution. But, the independent gives me and the other independent agents the ability or the tools, a much larger tool set to protect each client.
Yeah, that's great because you're not tied to one carrier that may have a product line in one place, may not offer a competitive rate in another state. You're able to really help your clients. In our industry, it's the fiduciary standard, and it sounds very similar that's what you're holding yourself to when you work with your clients.
That's right. That's right.
Well, great. Well, we've reached the end of our session here with our webinar. At this time, if we do have any questions, please go ahead and submit them. We'll hang out here for a moment. Thank you again for joining us today. At the bottom of the screen, we have our nice disclosures. That's our contact information for Cornerstone's main office in Huntersville. Again, my name is Alex Barnes, and this is Lawson Condell, who is with Safe Harbor Insurance Advisors. And we would, if you have any questions, please go ahead and submit them. Actually, let's see here. I do have raised hand. So I see there's a raised hand. Oh, there we go. Got a question now. Make sure here. So, Lawson, there's a question here. Should we require the BOP before we launch a product? So it sounds as if potentially somebody on the site or on our webinar here maybe runs a business or maybe is thinking about starting a product-based business. So can you speak to that at all?
Before you launch the product, I would think it depends, right? I mean, I would definitely speak to somebody closely about, I'm not sure what your vertical is, but I would like to have something in place, right? Again, it's not required, right? But a lot of times it's not required, but I would, for your own protection, again, it only takes one lawsuit, one injury, even just inferred, if the client infers that it is, to file a claim, and then once that claim is filed, it's too late, right? So, having that in place, and a BOP really is, if you're under, and each carrier is a little different, but a lot of them are, most of them are, if you're under $3 million in revenue, you fall into the BOP, their size. Right. So, but it's an easy way, and you may not have, if you're software, you may not need the property. You can still do a BOP and not have a brick and mortar. So there's a number of different options that you can do that'll you can still tailor the BOP down to get it that you're not paying for things you don't need, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's great. And please, whoever, asked this question, if you do have more questions, please feel free to reach out to Lawson individually using his phone number or email. I'm sure he can, help you evaluate some options.
Yeah.
We did have another question, about life insurance. And so while today's call is not specifically, geared towards talking about life insurance and life insurance needs, I do want to answer it a little bit and say that life insurance is very specific to each individual. Just as Lawson has talked about personal lines and commercial lines, evaluating your life insurance needs is like asking how much does that car cost? Because there's bells, there's whistles, there's models, there's different variations that are going to drive that. And that's a great actual question in terms of creating a topic for another webinar series. If you do want to have an individual discussion about your own life insurance needs or evaluating, as I've talked about, with group insurance versus whole life or term life that you own, please feel free to reach out. If you're working with an advisor already, reach out to them directly. If you do want to reach out to myself or if you want to reach out to Lawson, please feel free to do that as well. Let's see, we have one other question here, okay, and this actually, again, applies towards life insurance. And again, I'll answer it a little bit here, and then, again, we may have another webinar where we kind of dig into this even deeper, but asking term, universal, or whole, and the process to convert from one to another. So again, this question is, a little bit specific, I can speak to myself. I do have term insurance, being a younger advisor within the firm. Term insurance, but one of the reasons I chose the carrier I went with was the ability to convert without additional underwriting at points later in my life. I think this is important to consider because, for me, I want to, again, own my policies. As I get older and potentially have less of a need for life insurance, I can have a paid-up policy potentially or a cheaper whole life policy. Again, that was specific to my needs and what I was able to find. The question of term universal hold, again, just all depends on what goals you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to create cash value, if you're trying to get the highest leverage for your dollar in terms of life insurance, that's where you want to have a specific conversation to your needs. Again, if this person on the call, if you want to reach out to myself, or if you're already a client working with an advisor, please have that conversation with them to understand what your options are, what's available, and what fits for your particular situation. Just, I want to make sure, Lawson, you may have some personal insight as well. If there's anything you want to add, please go right ahead.
No, it's all good. Yeah.
Great. Well, great. Well, these were great questions. It doesn't appear that we have any more at the moment. So again, thank you all for attending. If you want to visit our website, cwgadvisors.com, future webinars will be released. This one, the recording of it, if you want to go back and watch it or share with your friends or family, will be up on our website as well as up on YouTube. We have a channel there that Ashley is doing a great job of managing. Again, if you need Lawson, his contact information is here, and we look forward to seeing you on our future webinars. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you.